Welcome to a demonstration podcast on how you can use version 2.2 of the England Green Infrastructure Mapping, recently released, to investigate local green space accessibility. In version 2.2, and for the first time, we have incorporated some data from DEFRA's work to develop the Access to Nature official statistic. It's still in development, but there is scenario data for particular levels of green space which relate closely to the accessible green space standards. So how can we use this data to better understand local green space accessibility? And in this demonstration, we'll be using four principal sources of information in the mapping. Firstly, the accessible green infrastructure data. Secondly, the accessible green space standards, in particular doorstep standard data. The access to nature statistics, which is the green space scenario 3, which aligns with the doorstep standard, and access points data. So on this, if we leave our slides and go to the actual website, this is the mapping site on the England Green Infrastructure Standards website itself, and we're in an area of South Manchester. And if we bring up the first map, what we call the green blue infrastructure map, we can see it seems to be relatively well served for public parks and green spaces, in particular this one here, which we're going to have an interest in for this podcast. So that's an accessible piece of green infrastructure. We'll bring up that data there and we'll zoom in a little and start to investigate what's going on. So the first thing I want to know is, how does this relate to the doorstep standards? So just to remind people, that is a space of at least 0.5 of a hectare within 200 meters buffer. So bring up the buffer, and the dark blue zone around the green space itself is the 200-meter buffer, and that's created by literally putting a 200-meter zone around the edge of the green space itself. And if we take down the intensity so we can see underneath it, we can see these predominantly residential areas in here, which are within the accessible green space standards doorstep buffer. Well, the buffer itself is a zone of proximity. So you're within 200 meters proximity, but can you actually get into the green space in 200 meters? Well, to understand that, we've imported the DEFRA statistical data that has been developed and was published and updated in May of this year. For scenarios 3, 4, 5, and 7, these relate most closely to the actual doorsteps local neighbourhood standards. So scenario 3 equates to the doorstep standard, but is a statistical measure, not a proximity measure. So if we bring it up, the data itself is presented at output area level. So we can see this dark zone around here represents the buffer. We can see it as a shadow in the background. I might be particularly interested in individual output areas as to who has or how accessible this green space is to these individual communities. And if I click on each output area here, what we'll get is the fact that it's in the buffer, but we'll also get a percentage here. 34.6% of households within that buffer, within that output area, are within 200 meters of an access point to that green space. If we go over here, we find that, in fact, the percentage who have access plummets to 0%. And yet, they're right next door to the park. How can it be that none of the households in this output area are within 200 meters of the park when they are actually next door? Well, the answer to that is down to how the actual statistical information is generated, because it's measuring journeys. So this is based on what often is referred to as a network analysis, and it's from origin to destination. And the origin is the household itself. So all the households in here are an origin point. But the actual access to the green space is measured to the nearest access point to it, because not all of the actual boundary of the green space is accessible. So if we then go to the actual access point data and bring it up back up in module 1, zoom in slightly, access points appear. They're a bit difficult to see. I'll point them out. There is one here, there is another one here, and there's another one here. Those appear to be the closest access points to the households in this output area here, which give access into the actual park itself. So if we then bring up the measuring tool and go from the very edge of the output area to what is in fact the nearest access point, we can see that's approximately 300 meters, well outside of the 200-meter zone that we're actually interested in. If we go to the other nearest one here, which ostensibly looks closer, but we have to use the local network of roads and paths. And to do that, even from the edge of the output area on this side, we have to start here, we have to go down the road, up the road again to this road, all the way down this road here, and up that road there to the access point. And we can see, if we do that, that's nearly 600 metres. So we're clearly a long way from the 200 metre zone that we're interested in. And that explains why 0% of the households in this output area fit the 200 metre criteria. Well, that's interesting. What can we do about that? Let's get rid of the tool and take down the layers and have a little closer look at this community here. Have we got any options, should we wish, to improve on that circumstance? Well, actually, there might be. So, for example, we can see, if I bring up the actual accessible green infrastructure boundary here, like that. This is the edge of the park. We have what looks to be a road that goes to the edge of the park here. Does that mean there is an access point missing from the data, in which case the statistics won't be picking up the fact that these people are within 200 metres? Or is it's not an access point? Could it become an access point? These roads look interesting too, as does this here. This looks like a public road. Now, I don't know, and we can't tell from the map whether feasibly, physically, it's possible to create an access point through the boundary here or not. But we do know that these little points here potentially are very interesting. And if I was interested in bringing this community to within 200 metres, those are the places that I might be interested in having a look at. And that's the point at which we have to say we've done as much map work as we can, and to work out how feasible it would be to create an access point which would bring this community into that standard, then we're going to have to get out of the office and go knock on some doors and see what's possible on the ground. Thank you.